In a feel-good rebirth novel, there exists a seemingly minor canon fodder character. Tang Cheng, who once schemed to marry her beloved prince, suddenly finds herself engaged to the heir of the Duke of Zhenguo, a man known for his difficulty in fathering children. But just 1 month later, she becomes pregnant. And that is where a heartwarming and unexpected love story begins. But in this story, Tang Cheng is no longer the blind canon fodder. She is a transmigrator, from an interstellar empire, unaware of the tragic fate the original character once faced. When handed a dark vial of abortion medicine, she simply smiles, throws it away, and vows to protect the little life within her. When Huayan, the heir admired by countless noble ladies, now stands beside Tang Cheng, a man once believed to be childless, finds his destiny changed by a woman who brings him miracles. From a marriage of schemes grows a family envied by the world. This is the journey from canon fodder to the true mistress of happiness, a tale filled with warmth and unexpected turns. You're listening to the story on Galaxxy romance novel. If you enjoy it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you won't miss the next chapters. The heir of Prince Rong frowned slightly when he saw Wen Huayan still holding the hand warmer he had gifted to Miss Tang. Young Master Wan, Miss Tang isn't feeling well. I prepared that hand warmer specifically for her, so kindly return it to her. Though he didn't say the last part aloud, his expression made the message crystal clear. The onlookers. So Miss Tang is on her period. A few noble ladies flushed with embarrassment, while the young men looked visibly awkward. Unlike the 3 people at the center of this drama, who remained perfectly calm and unbothered. Thick-skinned, all of them. Still, if fourth Miss Tang was indeed menstruating, that meant she truly had a miscarriage. Among the crowd were people secretly planted by other branches of the Duke Zhenguo's household, spies who hadn't even made a move yet but had already gotten the answer they came for. A win-win truly. And of course, the heir of Prince Rong was inwardly delighted. In his view, this meant he was now back on equal footing with Wen Huayan. Wen Huayan idly toyed with the hand warmer in his hand, a faint smile curling his lips. Tang Cheng, do you want it? His tone made it clear. If she so much as nodded, he'd stuff it back into her arms without hesitation. Tang Cheng shook her head instantly. No, I'm good. Are you kidding me? The weather wasn't exactly hot, but hugging a hand warmer like that would make anyone sweat. She had no intention of suffering needlessly. The heir of Prince Rong. This Wen Huayan, never married, never had a woman, was clearly inexperienced. He has no idea how to care for a lady properly. He might not outshine Wen Huayan in other aspects, but when it came to understanding women, Wen Huayan couldn't hold a candle to him. Let him have his moment now, the heir thought to himself. In time, fourth Miss Tang would come to appreciate the difference. For now she only sees the face. One day she'll see the man behind it. Wen Huayan, clearly pleased with Tang Cheng's response, casually tossed the hand warmer back into the heir of Prince Rong's hands. There you go, Your Highness. Returning your property to its rightful owner. Let the fool be the one to carry around a steaming hot lump. Tang Cheng, Su Jingxing and Qi Changxiu, the onlookers. The heir of Prince Rong looked down at the hand warmer in his hands and was just about to offer it to Tang Cheng when she quickly turned her head away, as if it were something contagious. The heir of Prince Rong. After a moment of internal struggle, he ended up shoving it into his attendant's hands. The servant stared blankly, holding the hand warmer like it had suddenly become a burden. The hand warmer now back where it started. What did I ever do to deserve this? Why is everyone rejecting me? Wen Huayan's lips curved in amusement. Everyone else. The 4 main maids. With the hand warmer situation finally resolved, the 2 young lords exchanged a glance, then casually had people bring over a table and chairs. The 3 of them, Wen Huayan, Prince Rong's heir and Tang Cheng, sat around a redwood table, sipping tea and chatting as if they hadn't just been at each other's throats moments ago. The atmosphere was warm and peaceful. One might almost believe the earlier tension had just been everyone's imagination. The spectators watched with visible frustration. Still, not a single brainless noble lady stepped up to cause trouble for Tang Cheng. Before long the crowd dispersed, some returning to their horse racing, others breaking into smaller groups to play various little games. Su Jingxing and Qi Changxiu quietly slipped away. Before leaving, Su Jingxing scooped up the little parrot that had been silent as a mouse the entire time, and declared he was taking it to see the world. Finally they're gone. What a bunch of nosy busybodies, Tang Cheng muttered grumpily, slumping back in her chair with a lazy sigh. She came to watch the drama, not become part of it. When Huaiyan glanced sidelong at the heir of Prince Rong, his gaze faintly mocking. Can't help it, your side is always the most eventful. Tang Cheng shot them both an exasperated look. And who do you think caused all the fuss? The heir of Prince Rong's lips twitched, but he let the jab slide and turned to Wen Huaiyan with a smile. Care for a race, young Lord Wen? Wen Huaiyan's eyes narrowed, a flicker of challenge sparking within them. Gladly. And just like that, the two men, cordial in appearance but rivals at heart, rose in unison and headed off for a horseback showdown. Tang Cheng immediately perked up, her interest piqued. The four maids, out on the racetrack bathed in sunlight, when Huaiyan and the heir of Prince Rong, now clad in riding gear, urged their horses forward. Like two male peacocks putting on a show, they raced neck and neck, executing dazzling riding techniques with practiced flair. The crowd erupted in cheers. Tang Cheng's eyes lit up with excitement, and she couldn't help but leap to her feet and cheer loudly. The four maids, riding tall and proud, when Huaiyan suddenly glanced toward Tang Cheng's direction, as if sensing her gaze. His lips curved upward in a confident smile, and with a powerful burst of speed, he surged ahead, quickly putting distance between himself and the other rider. He looked utterly gallant, wild, bold, and impossibly striking. Tang Cheng's eyes couldn't help but follow his figure. Meanwhile, Lu Jintong, disguised as a man, had just arrived at the racetrack, having been invited by Qi Changxiu. She walked in just in time to witness the two heirs putting on their flashy riding show and was visibly stunned. Surprised? Qi Changxiu asked with a chuckle. Lu Jintong nodded slowly. She hadn't expected the heir of Prince Rong to be mingling with Wen Huaiyan like this. You just got here so you don't know, Qi Changxiu explained. But Prince Rong's heir has taken a liking to fourth Miss Tang. He's actively pursuing her. Naturally, that put him at odds with Huaiyan. Maybe because he saw Lu Jintong as a kindred spirit, another thoughtful young man from a good family. Qi Changxiu spoke with ease and familiarity. How's that possible? Fourth Miss Tang's known for her lack of virtue, poor reputation and violent temper. What could he possibly see in her? Lu Jintong's expression darkened slightly. First Wen Huaiyan, now Prince Rong's heir? Even if she knew they were most likely targeting Tang Cheng's childbearing potential, it still frustrated her to no end. That idiot Tang Cheng. How could she be this lucky? In her past life, Tang Cheng had relied solely on her womb. Even without favor, she still managed to dominate the fourth prince's harem. Heaven really is unfair. Qi Changxiu frowned slightly when he heard his new friend speak so disdainfully about the woman Wen Huaiyan liked. Yes, fourth Miss Tang had a bad temper and wasn't the brightest, but it wasn't as if she'd ever committed any vile crimes or done anything truly outrageous. At worst, she was a troublemaker who liked stirring things up, but that was still better than some noble ladies who smiled sweetly while stabbing you in the back. Lu Tong, Qi Changxiu said, his voice calm but firm. Fourth Miss Tang is someone my friend has taken a liking to. I trust his judgment. Don't speak of her like that again, or we may not remain friends. Lu Jintong immediately sensed the shift in his tone and silently cursed herself. How could she forget how close Qi Changxiu was to Wen Huaiyan? Qi Changxiu might not be the heir to the Duke of Qi just yet, and sure, the current duke didn't value him much. He was just a seemingly idle, legitimate-born young master without a formal post. But in her past life, he had completely turned the tables, rising in power to eventually become the new Duke of Qi. If she wanted to support the seventh prince's ascension, she would need connections and influence. That's why she had disguised herself as a man to get close to Qi Changxiu, and he'd already started treating her like a real friend. She couldn't let that idiot Tang Cheng ruin everything now. I apologize, Lu Jintong said quickly. There's been so much gossip about fourth Miss Tang lately that I let it affect my judgment. Since your friend is pursuing her, then she must have her merits. But deep down she was fuming. That wretched woman Tang Cheng just wouldn't go away. Qi Changxiu's expression eased slightly at her apology. Just don't parrot what others say next time, he advised. Lu Jintong nodded quickly. Yes, I understand. Then she joined Qi Changxiu in watching Wen Huaiyan and the heir of Prince Rong racing across the field. But the longer she watched, the worse she felt. Both men were outstanding, the cream of the crop, and yet both had fallen for fourth Miss Tang? Just because she had a womb that could bear children? If only Shanhu hadn't died. If only she had managed to get Tang Cheng to drink that spiked abortion medicine back then, how perfect that would have been. A trace of blood red flashed through Lu Jintong's eyes as she clenched her fists so tightly that her nails dug into her palms. Something didn't sit right with her. She couldn't shake the feeling. Tang Cheng should have drunk that medicine, should have been ruined for life. There was no way she should be out here now, basking in all this glory. As Lu Jintong spiraled deeper into her thoughts, Su Jingxing arrived carrying a birdcage. Inside it, the usually silent parrot named An and suddenly widened its little eyes the moment it saw Lu Jintong in her male disguise. Flapping its wings, it shrieked at her with its sharp, high-pitched voice. Bad crowd! Bad crowd! The parrot's cry was so sudden and piercing it rang out like a thunderclap, turning all heads at once. There, in full view of the onlookers, was a tiny parrot screeching "Bad crowd!" over and over at a rather dashing young man. People's gazes shifted subtly, and more than a few looked at Lu Jintong with suspicion. Lu Jintong was both furious and mortified. She wanted nothing more than to strangle that damned bird. She noticed Qi Changxiu's eyes flicker with something odd as he looked at her. Panic rose in Lu Jintong's chest. Could Tang Cheng be here too? That stupid parrot was definitely the one Tang Cheng raised. No way. She can't be here, right? Without an invitation, there was no way anyone could enter the racecourse. Huh? Why is this little parrot suddenly so excited, chirping at this young master? Su Jingxing looked genuinely surprised. Was it something special about this young man that caught the parrot's attention? Or was the parrot just confused? I find it strange too, Qi Changxiu added, turning to look at Lu Tong with a puzzled expression. Lu Tong, have you seen this parrot before? His tone was calm, but there was a subtle undercurrent of suspicion. This parrot had been gifted to fourth Miss Tang by Wen Huaiyan, who'd gotten it from Su Jingxing. From Lu Tong's earlier comments, it was clear he wasn't acquainted with fourth Miss Tang, so why was the parrot reacting to him like this? But the parrot's reaction didn't lie. I've never seen it before, Lu Jintong denied instinctively. At that moment, she was still under the impression that Tang Cheng wasn't at the racecourse, unaware she was about to be thoroughly exposed. Qi Changxiu gave his new friend a long, steady look, catching the flicker of guilt in his eyes. He let out a silent, bitter chuckle. Seems his judgment of character still needed work. Elsewhere, hearing the parrot screeching, Tang Cheng turned around curiously to see who it was calling bad crowd. Oh, what a familiar face. Her lips curled into a grin. The world really was small. Miss Lu certainly enjoys her little game of dressing as a man, doesn't she? No wonder An and the parrot had gone off the rails shouting bad crowd. It was spot on. Tang Cheng let out a soft laugh. By now, Wen Huaiyan and the heir of Prince Rong had finished their race. Unaware of the little drama that had just played out, Wen Huaiyan raised an eyebrow when he saw Tang Cheng's beaming smile. So happy to see me back? Having raced 2 rounds, Wen Huaiyan was slightly flushed with sweat. He walked straight up to Tang Cheng and took a sip of tea, his masculine presence overwhelming. As if, I just happened to spot an old acquaintance. Tang Cheng rolled her eyes at him, casually refilling his tea and pouring a cup for the Prince Rong's heir as well. Wen Huaiyan's guard instantly went up. An old acquaintance? Yes, that handsome young gentleman standing next to young Master Qi. Tang Cheng tilted her delicate chin toward Qi Changxiu, her beautiful almond-shaped eyes brimming with amusement. So, Miss Lu has been living quite freely, hasn't she? The 4 maids. They too spotted Miss Lu, dressed as a man, standing at young Master Qi's side. Remembering how she had once gritted her teeth and forced herself to walk all day just to accompany their lady on a shopping trip, the 4 silently pitted young Master Qi for being the next target of Miss Lu's gaze. Handsome young gentleman. Both Wen Huaiyan and the heir of Prince Rong stiffened slightly. One horse race and suddenly another handsome young gentleman appeared out of nowhere. The 2 felt rather vexed. But after taking a closer look at the supposed young man beside Qi Changxiu, they noticed his overly delicate features, rosy lips and white teeth, a frail frame, and an utter lack of masculinity. Clearly no threat at all. The two of them breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. That so-called acquaintance must just be some of Tang Cheng's old idle companions she no longer mingled with. Wen Huaiyan, now in a good mood, asked casually, "Tang Cheng, is he your friend?" Tang Cheng's expression turned oddly amused. Neither Wen Huaiyan nor the heir of Prince Rong realized that this handsome gentleman was actually a woman in disguise? How strange. At the moment, Tang Cheng had no idea that Lu Jintong carried a protagonist's halo. Her true identity as a woman would only be revealed once her romance reached a certain stage. Until then, all men and women alike were blind. Tang Cheng answered honestly, "Not really, we've only crossed paths twice." Wen Huaiyan twitched. "You call that an acquaintance?" Tang Cheng waved her hand with a smile. "Don't fuss over details. At least she left an impression on both me and my little parrot. That puts her on the fringe of familiar strangers. Let's just call her an acquaintance." Wen Huaiyan's mouth twitched again. A familiar stranger, shortened to acquaintance. Brilliant logic. He was at a loss for words. It was the heir of Prince Rong's first time dealing with Tang Cheng. Hearing her unique definition of an acquaintance, he nearly choked on his tea. "Fourth Miss Tang, since he's your acquaintance, why not go over and say hello?" The four maids. If anything, Miss Lu probably wished their lady didn't recognize her at all. Tang Cheng curled her lips. "She wouldn't welcome me." The heir of Prince Rong. So this was a one-sided acquaintance? Wen Huaiyan, intrigued, asked, "And why wouldn't he welcome you?" Tang Cheng glanced toward Lu Jintong and Qi Changxiu in the distance, her smile mischievous. "Because she's afraid I'll ruin her little romance." Wen Huaiyan. Well, at least Tang Cheng was self-aware. "What romance?" the heir of Prince Rong asked curiously. "She's clearly smitten with young Master Qi." Tang Cheng grinned wickedly, dropping her bombshell. The four maids' lips twitched. Miss Lu being interested in young Master Qi was perfectly normal. She was a woman after all. The problem was, dressed as a man, it became unsettling. Wen Huaiyan's brow twitched, his expression toward Tang Cheng hard to describe. "Tang Cheng, you're overthinking this." The heir of Prince Rong also looked speechless. Tang Cheng just shrugged, indifferent. "Believe me or not, it's the truth. Back then, just to get close to me, she even gritted her teeth and walked the entire city with me. Oh, I forgot to mention, I was sitting in a carriage while she walked." Tang Cheng sighed dramatically. The heir of Prince Rong twitched at the corner of his eye. As expected, this was exactly the kind of thing fourth Miss Tang would do. Wen Huaiyan's handsome face stiffened slightly. "It's him." He had heard about the time Tang Cheng toured the capital in her carriage with a so-called handsome young gentleman trailing alongside. That poor fellow had walked the entire way, exhausted, just to accompany her, only for Tang Cheng to abandon him without a second thought once she was done shopping. Wen Huaiyan hadn't paid much attention back then. So that gentleman turned out to be the very same one now standing beside Qi Changxiu. Yes. Tang Cheng nodded. Wen Huaiyan. Meanwhile, Qi Changxiu and Su Jingxing, noticing that Wen Huaiyan and the heir of Prince Rong had returned from their race, were about to head over to greet them. Just then, Tang Cheng excused herself, slipping away to relieve herself, with her four maids following close behind. Not far away, Lu Jintong's gaze flickered when she caught sight of the two strikingly handsome men. Qi Changxiu didn't mind his little brother tagging along. Wen Huaiyan and the heir of Prince Rong, however, looked at the cross-dressing Lu Jintong with expressions cool and aloof. Lu Jintong didn't take it to heart. When the conversation drifted to Tang Cheng, she chimed in with a few words, seemingly standing up for the heir one. Wen Huaiyan's gaze darkened slightly. A cup of tea later, Tang Cheng returned. Miss Lu's here too?" Tang Cheng looked mildly surprised. The instant Lu Jintong saw Tang Cheng, her pupils contracted sharply, her eyes full of shock. "Tang Cheng? Why was Tang Cheng here?" She quickly regained her composure, blinking rapidly at Tang Cheng in a silent plea. "Please don't expose my disguise." Tang Cheng, baffled by Lu Jintong's frantic winking, cheerfully greeted her. "What a coincidence, Miss Lu. We meet again. Why are you blinking so much? Are your eyes bothering you?" The four maids behind her twitched at the corners of their mouths. Their lady always knew how to earn hatred the moment she opened her mouth. Right now, Miss Lu probably hated her guts. The instant Tang Cheng spoke, Lu Jintong's mind went blank, her face draining of all color. Done for. That damn Tang Cheng was going to ruin everything. Qi Changxiu and the others froze in shock. Miss Lu? Young Master Lu was a woman? When Huayan's lips twitched, remembering Tang Cheng's earlier words, his expression grew complicated. Miss Lu, what exactly was your purpose in approaching me? Qi Changxiu's face suddenly turned cold as he demanded an answer. Now that her disguise had been exposed, Lu Jintong had no choice but to put her original plan on hold. Unless absolutely forced, she wasn't willing to lose Qi Changxiu as her backer and ally. Her mind turned swiftly. Within moments she had her excuse ready. I'm sorry, Brother Qi. I never meant to deceive you. I only did it because I like you. I wanted to be closer to you, so I disguised myself as a man to approach you. Because of love, she had done everything she could to be near him. So now she was nothing more than a girl smitten with Qi Changxiu. It was the simplest, most forgivable excuse she could give. Lu Jintong cleverly played the role of the love-struck admirer, putting on a pitiful air of helplessness, her gaze at Qi Changxiu shy yet brimming with affection. Miss Lu liked him? Qi Changxiu frowned. He hadn't expected a woman to disguise herself as a man just to get close to him out of infatuation. If it had been anyone else, he might have believed such an excuse. But from this Miss Lu, something felt off. He remained skeptical. Seeing the doubt in his eyes, Lu Jintong's hands clenched at her sides. She loathed Tang Cheng to death for exposing her. Tang Cheng tilted her head, studying Lu Jintong's expression. Those loving looks of hers don't sit right with me. They seem fake. What do you think, young Lord Xiao? You're a man, and certainly the most experienced here. Doesn't it feel put on to you? Tang Cheng wasn't trying to deliberately pick on Lu Jintong. She genuinely felt that her adoring gaze looked unnatural. At the same time, she could clearly sense Lu Jintong's hostility toward her. And that made her angry. Her words stunned everyone, who instinctively turned toward the heir of Prince Rong. When Huayan, catching Tang Cheng's jab about his experience, let a faint smile slip into his eyes. The heir's eyelid twitched. Fourth Miss Tang was far too perceptive. Was it really good to expose someone so mercilessly? He gave a small cough. Miss Tang's eye for detail is truly impressive. A roundabout way of confirming she was right. Now even Su Jingxing and the others began looking at Lu Jintong differently. Qi Changxiu's handsome face darkened instantly. He had truly misjudged her. This so-called Miss Lu was nothing but a liar, every word out of her mouth false. Su Jingxing gave Qi Changxiu a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. Lu Jintong nearly coughed up blood in rage. That damn Tang Cheng again. Now Qi Changxiu probably despised her. But even so, she wasn't ready to give up. With reddened eyes, she pitifully threw out one last line. Brother Qi, I really do like you, believe it or not. Then she straightened her back, turned on her heel and walked away. Her retreating figure was proud yet desolate. Unfortunately for Lu Jintong, no one present was an ordinary person. Her final display of pitiful resolve was completely ignored. Tang Cheng, however, couldn't help but feel a grudging admiration. Miss Lu really was clever, always striving for what she wanted. The problem was she loved scheming and carried obvious malice toward her. When Huayan narrowed his eyes, this Miss Lu was far from simple, and she had surely taken Tang Cheng to heart in all the wrong ways. He resolved to have her watched. After Lu Jintong's departure, Su Jingxing and Qi Changxiu soon learned the truth of her identity from Tang Cheng's lips, and immediately began teasing Qi Changxiu. Who didn't know of the messy scandals of the Jianen's household, or the methods of its eldest daughter, Qi Changxiu? Tang Cheng meanwhile returned to her favorite pastime, enjoying the spectacle. Hearing that someone had set up a gambling table, she joined in for fun and even won a little pocket money. She didn't make many new acquaintances, but she left thoroughly entertained. At the time, she had no idea she had just sabotaged the budding storyline between the heroine and her devoted male companion. Back at the estate, Tang Cheng behaved herself, quietly staying in her courtyard to focus on her pregnancy, without stirring up further trouble. The heir of Prince Rong, however, began paying frequent visits. The princess consort of Rong approved wholeheartedly. She even supported her son marrying fourth Miss Tang. When word spread that after the heir of one, The heir of Prince Rong also wished to take her as his future consort. Everyone was left utterly dumbfounded. Once again, fourth Miss Tang became the hottest subject of gossip in the capital. Tang Cheng, however, remained perfectly calm. Meanwhile, Tang Cheng had already been betrothed to the second son of Princess Consort Cheng. Yet, not long after the engagement, one mishap after another befell her. Soon, whispers began circulating that the young man might be an ill match, possibly even fated to bring misfortune to third Miss Tang. Princess Consort Cheng and Madame Zhang of the Marquis of Nanyang's household joined forces to suppress the rumors. But when Tang Cheng heard the gossip from Granny Yang, she immediately had her suspicions. These incidents were likely Tang Cheng's own doing, because she had no desire to marry into the Cheng household. Her stepmother probably knew as much as well. What remained unclear was how they planned to resolve it. After satisfying her curiosity with a little gossip, Tang Cheng let the matter go. Her father, the Marquis, had already compiled a list of eligible young gentlemen for her consideration, and that was where her attention now lay. Father, let's make this list public. Tang Cheng thought of how she used to envy women in the empire with high fertility values. They could freely meet and choose their favored partners. Of course, the chosen ones had the right to refuse, but most would never turn down a woman with such value. She wanted to enjoy that same privilege while her pregnancy still wasn't showing. Unconventional? Scandalous? So what? Tang Cheng only wished to fulfill her own dream and obsession. The Marquis of Nanyang nearly choked on his own saliva. Chenger, you want to publish the list? Tang Cheng nodded matter-of-factly. Of course. Courtship goes both ways, doesn't it? How else will we know if the other side is even interested? The Marquis cleared his throat, trying to dissuade his daughter. Aren't you worried no one will agree to meet you, and you'll just become a laughingstock? Tang Cheng didn't look the least bit concerned. I trust father won't let his daughter fall into such an embarrassing situation. The Marquis. His precious daughter's trust weighed on the Marquis of Nanyang's chest like a mountain, heavy and suffocating. Faced with her expectant gaze, he had no choice but to abandon his original plan. After all, it wasn't as if she were asking him to commit some heinous crime. If it made his darling daughter happy, then so be it. Very well. Leave it to me. Tang Cheng beamed, then suddenly recalled something. People here were terribly superstitious. They exchanged birth charts for engagements, had masters read fortunes, believed in gods, Buddhas, and ghosts alike. Father, when my engagement with young Lord Wen was arranged and our birth charts exchanged, did anyone have a master check them? The Marquis wasn't sure why she suddenly jumped to this topic, but he answered truthfully. No. At the time when the news of your pregnancy broke, the Duke of Zhenguo was too overjoyed to bother with a master. Even if the charts didn't match, young Lord Wen would still have carried you into his manor with 8 sedan bearers. As for the Duchess, she disliked you from the start, so going out of her way to consult a master was out of the question. What followed, of course, had shocked everyone. Barely 10 days after the betrothal, the engagement was broken, stirring up a storm across the capital. The matter of matching the charts had simply been dropped. So there was no reading done? Excellent. Father, secretly find a famous master to read my fortune. If it says I have the fate of many children and much prosperity, have it leaked to the public to build up my reputation. If not, then that so-called master is clearly overrated. In that case, just slip some silver to a wandering Taoist and have him spread the fortune according to my instructions. In short, I want to be known as someone destined for fertility, blessed with many sons and endless descendants. To Tang Cheng, even though there was no such thing here as a fertility score, children and lineage were still highly prized. And she was confident. Her body was naturally fertile. So this wasn't false advertising. It was a guaranteed brand promise. The Marquis. Her sudden scheme nearly left him stunned. Ahem. Chenger, even if we spread the word that you have the fate of wealth, rank, and blessings, that would be safer than claiming you'll bear many sons. Many sons and great fertility, that wasn't something to be taken lightly. If such a rumor backfired, it could be disastrous. But Tang Cheng was brimming with confidence. Don't worry, father. I never make false claims. 10 or 8 children. Surely I can manage that much. The Marquis's mouth twitched. No, he was not reassured at all. This wasn't about false advertising. Did she think children could simply be summoned by words? 10 or 8. As if it were that simple. The Marquis grew increasingly anxious. Cheng, why don't we take our time with this fortune-telling business, Tang Cheng frowned. No, father. We can't delay. This must be done quickly. I still want to hold a grand matchmaking banquet. The Marquis. In the end, unable to resist his daughter's persistence, the Marquis gave in. All the while, his mind raced with countermeasures. The stress nearly broke him. Thankfully, he was still strong and healthy. He could live another few decades at least. Otherwise, who would protect Cheng when he was gone? His legitimate and illegitimate sons weren't close to her. Only he, her father, could shield her. Tang Cheng, oblivious to her father's growing worries about her future, was simply delighted that he had agreed to promote her reputation. The Marquis was a man of his word. The very next day, he secretly sent his most trusted aide to the capital's most renowned temple to find Master Huiming, famed for his skill in fate and fortune. At midday after court, the Marquis hurried home, anxious to hear the result. In his study, the aide relayed the master's judgment. My lord, the master set forth Mrs. Fate is blessed with abundant descendants. Her husband will prosper, her children will be noble, and her life will be smooth and fortunate. The Marquis breathed a sigh of relief, joy lighting his face at such a favorable reading. But when he saw the aide hesitate as though holding something back, his heart sank, a faint unease creeping in. Did the master say anything else? The master also said that the one whose birth chart this is, has a short lifespan and will be unable to enjoy the blessings of children and grandchildren. The aide forced himself to deliver the final words. The study fell into utter silence. The atmosphere turned heavy, and the aide scarcely dared to breathe. Had Lu Jintong been present, she would have been stunned, for Tang Cheng's fate in her previous life was exactly as the master had foretold. After a long pause, Marquis of Nanyang's face darkened, but suddenly a thought struck him like a flash of lightning. The emperor himself, young Lord One, and his precious daughter had all taken the body-strengthening elixir. Just days ago, he had run into the grand astrologer of the Directorate of Astronomy. The man had studied his features intently, then exclaimed in shock that his face showed no sign of health or longevity, and pressed him to admit whether he had sought out a master to change his fate. The power of the body-strengthening elixir was beyond imagination. Perhaps it truly could alter destiny. Maybe things weren't as grim as they seemed. His daughter might very well live a long life. With that thought, the Marquis's expression cleared, the gloom lifting from his face. He hurried to Peony Garden to tell Tang Cheng the master's verdict, carefully concealing the part about her shortened lifespan and her inability to enjoy the blessings of children. Tang Cheng was overjoyed. She thought to herself that the master had hit the mark by pure chance. After all, with her fertile constitution, how could she not be blessed with many children? Father, what is this master's Dharma name? Unable to resist, Tang Cheng asked her father about the master's name, intending to remember it well. She was already thinking that she could seek his help again in the future if the need arose. The Marquis of Nanyang replied with a smile, the master is a venerable monk. His Dharma name is Huiming. So it's Master Huiming. Even his name sounds like someone of true ability. Tang Cheng praised without hesitation. The Marquis of Nanyang. With Master Huiming's words backing her up, Tang Cheng grew even more confident. She flipped through the list of suitors her father had carefully selected. Regardless of family background, each one was tall, handsome, and perfectly in line with her tastes. Among them were Wen Huaiyan and the heir of Prince Rong. What surprised Tang Cheng even more was that the heir of the Marquis of Dingbei, Su Jingxing, and the eldest young master of the Duke of Qi's household, Qi Changxiu, were also on the list. Father, cross out the Marquis of Dingbei's heir and the Duke of Qi's young master. Neither of them has any interest in me, and I don't want to lose two good friends over this. The Marquis chuckled. Don't worry, Cheng. I already asked them. They said they're only joining in for the fun, and to help boost your reputation. Tang Cheng's eyes lit up, and her affection for the two young men soared. Now that's what I call true friends. The Marquis of Nanyang nearly choked. His precious daughter had a very strange definition of friendship. Still with them, plus Wen Huaiyan and Prince Rong's heir, this matchmaking banquet was bound to draw attention. It certainly wouldn't turn into a farce. Father, when you publish the list, remember to include the master's reading of my fate as well. Tang Cheng added cheerfully. This was a rare opportunity. If she was going to play, she might as well go big. The Marquis agreed, and once he had personally met with Master Huiming, he quickly made the list public. The Marquis of Nanyang's list of suitors, along with Tang Cheng's fortune reading, caused an uproar across the capital. The entire city was abuzz. Even the emperor was alarmed. Every man whose name appeared on the list became famous overnight, their backgrounds thoroughly dug up and discussed. Unmarried men who weren't on the list secretly rejoiced that they hadn't been chosen, while also feeling sour and envious. Conservatives fumed, denouncing Tang Cheng as outrageous and immoral, a disgrace to womanhood. Some censors even submitted memorials again, impeaching the Marquis for failing to raise his daughter properly. Of course, plenty of others admired and envied Tang Cheng, speaking up in her defense. In short, Tang Cheng's reputation became a mix of praise and condemnation. At the Count of Jiannan's residence, when Lu Jintong learned the full list of names, her face darkened. The Marquis of Nanyang's eye was truly sharp. Most of these men might seem unremarkable now, but in the future their careers would soar. No matter whom Tang Cheng married, she was destined for wealth, power, and a noble title. What infuriated Lu Jintong even more was that some of the men on the list were the very ones she had already begun to approach, planning to win over. Now, thanks to Tang Cheng, their names were famous and they had everyone's attention. With so many discerning people in the world, would these once overlooked or suppressed men still care about the little help she could offer? Lu Jintong nearly spat blood in rage. Tang Cheng was her nemesis. Every reckless stunt she pulled somehow ended up ruining Lu Jintong's plans. It was simply intolerable. Yet she remained helpless against Tang Cheng. No matter how many schemes she devised, they were useless if her enemy refused to step into the trap. Still, this time Tang Cheng had thoroughly slapped young Lord One in the face, and Lu Jintong secretly looked forward to the Duke of Zhenguo's reaction. Inside the imperial palace that day, the emperor, for once, set aside his brush and idly chatted with eunuch Fu in the imperial study about Tang Cheng. Your Majesty, that fourth young lady of the Tang family really knows how to stir up trouble. She's actually organizing some kind of matchmaking banquet like a talent show, and the Marquis of Nanyang is indulging her nonsense. No wonder the censors are impeaching him again, eunuch Fu said with a sigh. The emperor snorted coldly. Those censors are increasingly useless, ignoring what they should watch, and only jumping at trivialities. Eunuch Fu. The emperor then shifted the subject toward Tang Cheng's fate reading. Eunuch Fu, do you think 4th Miss Tang's fortune reading is true? Blessed with many children, husband prosperous, sons bringing honor. That was indeed an excellent fate. Far better than those vague, generic blessings of wealth and longevity. Not only could she bring prosperity to her husband's household, but also ensure heirs for the family line. Eunuch Fu replied, It should be true, Your Majesty. They say it was read by Master Huiming. A thought flickered in the emperor's mind. Eunuch Fu, doesn't 4th Miss Tang still like our 4th prince? What if I bestow a marriage between them? It was true his 4th son's household wasn't without women, yet not a single concubine had conceived a child. Of course, part of it was that the prince had little interest in women, but the fact that none had ever conceived worried the emperor deeply. After all, the 4th prince's health was perfectly sound. Eunuch Fu was so startled he nearly dropped to his knees. Had His Majesty forgotten 4th Miss Tang's scandalous reputation and her lost chastity? How could such a woman ever marry into the royal family? As a concubine, perhaps, but the Marquis of Nanyang would never agree. Your Majesty, 4th Miss Tang was already promised to the heir of Duke Zhenguo's family. And besides, the 4th prince wasn't even included on the Marquis's list of suitors. 4th Miss Tang also once rejected Your Majesty's offer of marriage. Clearly, she has already set the 4th prince aside. In other words, Your Majesty, best to let it go. The emperor. At the mention of Duke Zhenguo, a flicker of guilt crossed the emperor's heart. His notion of granting the 4th prince this marriage faded. Since 4th Miss Tang has no intention of marrying into the imperial clan, I won't meddle further. He sighed. If only that time when 4th Miss Tang tried to scheme against the 4th prince hadn't been thwarted, what a good match it might have been. The emperor shook his head with genuine regret. Eunuch Fu. Tang Cheng's spectacle had caused such a stir that even the emperor was moved to consider her. Naturally, the news reached the secluded madam of Duke Zhenguo at the nunnery as well. Though unable to leave, she immediately sent a letter to her son. All the more so for the Duke of Zhenguo's household, which was under the spotlight. Everyone in the capital knew that young Lord Wen intended to marry the fourth Miss Tang. Yet with this latest stunt of hers, it was nothing short of a public slap to the Duke's face. Now, everyone was waiting to see how the Duke's household would strike back. Tang Cheng was also waiting. She had stirred up no small amount of trouble recently, yet her marriage contract remained unbroken, leaving her restless and frustrated. And then her troublemaking fourth sister, Tang Cheng, had pulled off yet another outrageous stunt that left Tang Cheng both stunned and exasperated. No matter how recklessly Tang Cheng behaved, their father, the Marquis, continued to spoil her as if she were heaven's treasure. But when Tang Cheng had told her mother that she didn't want to marry into Prince Cheng's household, her mother had still gone ahead and finalized the match without asking her opinion. Tang Cheng had since staged one accident after another, even spreading rumors in secret that Prince Cheng's legitimate second son was fated to bring misfortune to his wife. She had nearly shaken the princess consort's confidence in the marriage, yet still her mother refused to relent. At last, Tang Cheng stormed straight to her father. "Father, I don't want to marry the prince's son. I want to break off this engagement." The Marquis of Nanyang's face darkened. "Xiner, do you know what you're saying?" Tang Cheng bit her lip hard. "I do. I want this engagement dissolved. I don't want to suffer another accident." The Marquis studied his daughter with a long penetrating look that made her heart flutter with unease. "Xiner, your mother and I had an agreement. The marriages of you and your brothers will be decided by her hand, not mine. If you want the engagement broken, you'll have to persuade her, not me." His hands clasped behind his back, he spoke with cool detachment. Disappointment and anger flared in Tang Cheng's chest. "Father, you're so biased. If it were fourth sister asking you to dissolve an engagement, you would agree without a second thought. I'm also your daughter. Why won't you stand up for me?" The Marquis's brows knit together. Yes, the human heart was partial. He did indeed favor Chang'er more, but that didn't mean he ignored his legitimate daughter. Her marriage had been a good match. Madame Zhang had chosen well. Every accident Xiner had engineered to sabotage the betrothal, they had seen through them all, yet they quietly covered for her, hoping she would come to her senses. But now Xiner had brought her pleas directly to him. The Marquis sighed inwardly. Fine. Perhaps he should bring it up with Madame Zhang after all. Before he could speak, Madame Zhang arrived, having already heard the news. The look she gave Tang Cheng was heavy with both disappointment and exhaustion. "Xiner, are you certain you want to break off this marriage?" Joy lit up Tang Cheng's face. "I'm certain." Madame Zhang held her gaze steadily. "And you won't regret it?" Tang Cheng shook her head firmly. "No, I won't." "Very well. I agree. You may go." Madame Zhang waved her off, her voice weary and her spirit dim. Overjoyed, Tang Cheng left at once. The Marquis of Nanyang reached for Madame Zhang's hand, patting it gently in comfort. "Let her go her own way." "Marquis Xiner has gotten carried away," Madame Zhang sighed. She had finally seen through it. Her daughter had gone to such lengths to break off her engagement all because her eyes had landed on the fourth prince. Had she learned nothing from watching that reckless fourth girl tangle herself up with him before? Now Xiner was following in her footsteps. Madame Zhang was both furious and helpless. This is her own choice. Forcing a gourd off the vine never makes it sweet. The Marquis of Nanyang had always been open-minded. Since Madame Zhang had already agreed, he had nothing more to say. Madame Zhang gave a bitter smile. If she had known, she would never have brought Xiner along to the old princess consort of Prince Cheng's birthday banquet. Thanks to the fourth girl's constant scandals, the Marquis's household was already under too much scrutiny. Once Xiner's engagement was annulled, there would be no end of criticism. But for her daughter's sake, Madame Zhang steeled her heart. That very afternoon, at Xiner's insistence, she went to Prince Cheng's manor to retrieve the marriage contract, thereby dissolving the betrothal between Tang Cheng and the prince's second son. The princess consort of Prince Cheng was deeply apologetic for dragging the third Miss Tang into this mess. Out of guilt, she didn't reclaim the betrothal gifts, and her son even shouldered all the blame himself. Madame Zhang's conscience twisted with guilt. What a fine son-in-law he would have been. Yet her daughter refused to treasure it. Losing such a match left Madame Zhang filled with regret, while her daughter's stubborn defiance only chilled her heart further. As soon as Madame Zhang left the prince's manor, word of the broken engagement spread quickly, with no effort made to conceal it. Since the second son had claimed responsibility, the rumors of his being cursed to bring misfortune to his wives only seemed more credible. People recalled how the third Miss Tang had suffered mishap after mishap since her betrothal, and they nodded in understanding. After all, who doesn't value their own life? If just being engaged had led to repeated accidents, then who would dare to marry him? He might bring death to his bride. Thus Tang Xian's reputation remained intact, but the prince's second son's marriage prospects darkened considerably. Who would dare marry a man doomed to kill his wives? When Lu Jintong heard the news, she let out a derisive laugh. A bunch of fools. In her past life, the third Miss Tang had indeed married the prince's second son, and she hadn't died. What clever means she had. Not only had she escaped the engagement, she had even managed to ruin the man's name. The Marquis of Nanyang's household truly was entertaining. 2 scandals in a single day. When Tang Cheng learned of Tang Xian's broken betrothal, she wasn't the least surprised. From the moment Xianer began orchestrating one accident after another, Tang Cheng had already foreseen this outcome. Someone who could be that ruthless to herself would eventually force their stepmother to give in. After hearing the news, Tang Cheng simply shrugged it off. She and Tang Xian had never been close. Everyone had their own pursuits and choices. As long as one didn't regret them, that was enough. Just as she herself believed. Once she acted, she would never regret it. That very night, when Huayan climbed over the walls of the Marquis's residence, lounging lazily on her couch, waiting for someone, Tang Cheng perked up at the familiar tapping against her window. Without even thinking, she called out, "Come in yourself." No sooner had the words left her mouth than a lithe figure vaulted through the window. Candlelight illuminated an impossibly handsome face, none other than the heir of the one family. "When Huayan, are you addicted to climbing walls now?" Tang Cheng looked at him in exasperation. Couldn't he just enter properly through the front gates like a civilized guest? When Huayan moved with practiced ease, taking a seat across from her at the low table. His eyes lingered on the 2 teacups placed between them. "You were waiting for me?" Tang Cheng poured him a cup of tea and nodded matter-of-factly. "Of course. I figured you wouldn't be able to sit still today. You were bound to come." When Huayan froze, his gaze lingering on her fair, delicate face. Her certainty seemed to settle the restlessness in his heart. So he already held a place in hers. His mind steadied. He had planned to confront her tonight, to tear open the lie about her feigned miscarriage. But now, when Huayan suddenly didn't want to anymore. "Tang Cheng," he asked quietly, fingers tightening around the teacup, "are you planning to give me an explanation?" She smiled at him. "Yes. In fact, even if you hadn't come tonight, I was going to explain." She wasn't truly heartless after all. She had no wish to wound Wen Huayan, the father of her child, whose temperament suited her far too well. When Huayan took a sip of tea, the corner of his mouth lifting despite himself. His eyes glimmered with a hint of expectation. "All right. I'm listening." Tang Cheng didn't beat around the bush. Her almond eyes gleamed bright as stars. "I hosted that matchmaking banquet to fulfill a little dream of mine, just to enjoy the feeling of an emperor holding a selection of beauties. In the empire, women with high fertility values would often send invitations before choosing a partner, and outstanding men would attend their banquets if interested. It was much like an emperor's draft of concubines, except that one was mutual choice, the other one-sided. So she had used it as her model. PFF. When Huayan choked on his tea, staring at her in disbelief. An imperial draft? She had turned it into a husband selection spectacle. So all of this just to fulfill some dream? She nodded briskly. Exactly. The result doesn't matter. What I enjoy is the process. When Huayan was speechless, Tang Cheng's way of thinking was always maddeningly unconventional. Then why drag Master Huaming's prediction into it? Tang Cheng shot him a look as if the answer were obvious. To stir up momentum, of course. I wasn't about to host a banquet that no one cared about and end up being laughed at. To her, fertility was an advantage to be flaunted, an ingrained belief not easily overturned. When Huaiyan gave up entirely, the Marquis of Nanyang actually let her run wild like this. When Huaiyan, Tang Cheng leaned forward, pouring him another cup of tea with uncharacteristic eagerness, help me organize this matchmaking banquet. The thought had just struck her, and she seized on it immediately. When Huaiyan stared at her, utterly dumbfounded. He hadn't misheard, had he? Tang Cheng actually wanted him to help arrange a matchmaking banquet, to find her child a stepfather. He'd have to be insane to agree. I refuse, he said flatly. I won't dig a hole for myself. Having one rival in Prince Rong's heir is more than enough. Tang Cheng gazed at him with mournful eyes. You've spoiled my taste. At this banquet I never intended to take a fancy to anyone else. I just wanted to indulge the dream. Something flickered in when Huaiyan's eyes at her words, a dark light sliding through his gaze. If you promise that once the banquet is over you'll immediately get engaged to me, I'll help you. Better yet, I'll give you a grand, dazzling matchmaking banquet worthy of your dream. Tang Cheng blinked. Engaged to Wen Huaiyan? She looked at the extraordinarily handsome man before her, at the seriousness in his eyes. Honestly, after spending these past days together, she had grown increasingly used to Wen Huaiyan's presence. She wasn't naive. She knew perfectly well that all of this was Wen Huaiyan's little scheme. Tang Cheng's feelings toward him were complicated. She didn't mind marrying him. After all, she was carrying his child. Marrying Wen Huaiyan was in truth the best choice. Thinking that through, she nodded decisively. All right, I'll agree to it. But the wedding has to be next year, she added. She wasn't about to get married with a big belly. That works. Wen Huaiyan's eyes lit up with excitement and relief. He nearly knocked over his teacup. No one had known how tense he had been while waiting for Tang Cheng, and now with her nod, all lingering doubts melted away. He hadn't expected tonight's visit to bring such a surprise. He no longer had to worry about his child suddenly gaining a stepfather. In the dim candlelight, Tang Cheng watched Wen Huaiyan's joy and excitement, and a peculiar warmth stirred in her heart. Just then a voice called from outside. Prince Wen, it's late. The Marquis says you should leave now, or he'll come fetch you to the training grounds for a sparring session. Tang Cheng couldn't help but giggle. Her gaze toward Wen Huaiyan tinged with sympathy. He twitched at the corner of his mouth. All right, I'll leave first. Tang Cheng waved. Take your time but don't climb any walls. Just use the front gate. Wen Huaiyan. After he left, Tang Cheng tidied up and went to bed. The next morning, she happily told her father about having Wen Huaiyan help organize the matchmaking banquet. The Marquis nearly spat out his tea. Unbelievable. Had the prince gone mad? Or given up? But once he learned that his daughter had agreed that Wen Huaiyan would help with the banquet, and that they would be engaged afterward, he was left speechless. The prince hadn't gone mad at all. He was cunning as a fox. The real question now, how would all those waiting to see the Duke of Zhenguo's reaction respond when they found out? When Duke Zhenguo learned that his son had agreed to fourth Miss Tang's terms, his stern, imposing face instantly cracked. It was naturally a joyous occasion that fourth Miss Tang had relented and agreed to a betrothal with his son, but to hold a matchmaking banquet for fourth Miss Tang, that would surely leave countless jaws dropping. The Duke of Zhenguo tugged at the corner of his mouth, speechless for a long while, before finally patting his son on the shoulder. Handle it yourself. As a father, there was nothing more he could do. Wen Huaiyan smiled faintly. Father, don't worry. Tang Cheng may seem willful and reckless on the surface, but she has her own sense of measure. She just likes to make mischief and stir up trouble, lively and spirited. The more Wen Huaiyan spent time with Tang Cheng, the less he believed the rumors. She was a vivid, headstrong young girl, straightforward and easy to read, fond of occasionally causing trouble that was both infuriating and endearing. The Marquis of Nanyang spoiled her, yet without letting her grow arrogant or corrupt in nature. Clearly, he had put in great effort. As long as you like her, that's enough. Seeing the smile in his son's eyes, the Duke of Zhenguo thought. It didn't matter if fourth Miss Tang wasn't fit to be the principal wife. So long as his son was happy, and the line continued, that was enough. After informing his father, Wen Huaiyan no longer came openly during the day, but instead scaled the walls at night. Whether he had grown addicted to climbing walls, or simply found the nighttime atmosphere more suitable for sharing a room, who could say? Thus, their meetings shifted from open to secret. The Marquis of Nanyang chose to turn a blind eye. After all, the two already had a child. What did it matter if they crossed more lines? It was exasperating. Ever since the Marquis of Nanyang's list of suitors and fourth Miss Tang's fate had been revealed, the heir of Prince Rong visited daily. Meanwhile, the young Lord Wen had conspicuously stopped coming by during the day for several days in a row. Rumors and gossip spread like wildfire. Whispers grew louder that fourth Miss Tang had brought this upon herself and been abandoned by Lord Wen. Countless people secretly awaited the spectacle. Lu Jintong gloated. Seeing you suffer puts me at ease. Yet Tang Cheng remained unchanged. When bored, she simply rode her lacquered carriage aimlessly through the capital, her carefree demeanor enough to make others envious. After annulling her own engagement, Tang Xian's mood brightened. Watching Tang Cheng dig her own grave and be abandoned by Wen Huaiyan, she gloated as well, but for once felt a flicker of sympathy. So she went to Peony Garden to comfort Tang Cheng. Fourth sister, even if Lord Wen has given up on you, don't be sad. Without him, isn't there still the heir of Prince Rong? Stop your antics and seize the chance. Winning over the heir of Prince Rong is what matters most. Tang Xian spoke with grave earnestness. Tang Cheng's expression darkened. Which of Tang Xian's eyes had seen her sad? As for the heir of Prince Rong, she had already explained to him after agreeing to Wen Huaiyan's terms. The heir had backed off. The two were simply friends now. His daily visits were just for appearances. Once she and Wen Huaiyan were formally betrothed, he would no longer come to the Marquis of Nanyang's residence. The four maids. When had Lord Wen ever abandoned their lady? Night after night he climbed the wall with tireless devotion. I know what I'm doing. And Wen Huaiyan hasn't abandoned me. Tang Cheng spoke lazily, then picked up a hawthorn cake and began eating with relish. She had especially craved sour foods these days. The kitchen's pastry chef, highly skilled, had prepared hawthorn cakes for her. Translucent as amber, sweet and tart, appetizing and delicious. Tang Cheng loved them. Fourth sister, Lord Wen hasn't visited for days, and you still say he hasn't abandoned you? Don't deceive yourself. Trust me. Grasping the heir of Prince Rong's hand is your best chance. Tang Xian's eagerness to push Tang Cheng toward the heir of Prince Rong stemmed from her own selfishness. She didn't want Tang Cheng entangled with the fourth prince. Better to prevent future quarrels between sisters that might tarnish her own reputation. Thus, Tang Xian planned ahead. Tang Cheng, however, let her words pass in one ear and out the other, savoring the hawthorn cake instead. The four maids. Third Miss was a bit too enthusiastic. Too bad she didn't realize the heir of Prince Rong was already out of the picture. The true future son-in-law was Lord Wen. Tang Xian grew anxious when she saw Tang Cheng eating pastries as if she didn't exist. Fourth sister, I'm saying this for your own good. You've already missed your chance with Lord Wen. If you miss the heir of Prince Rong too, what then? Do you plan to take a husband into the family? Tang Cheng frowned. Hadn't she just said this was her own business? Was Tang Xian incapable of understanding human speech? Nagging on and on endlessly. It was ruining her mood, and her appetite. Tang Xian, just mind your own business. You don't need to worry about me. I'm going to take a nap, so you should leave. Too lazy to listen to Tang Xian's nonsense, Tang Cheng directly sent her away. Tang Xian's face darkened. Truly, kindness taken for donkey's liver and lungs. Forget it. Let Tang Cheng dig her own grave. She stormed off in a huff. Tang Cheng went right back to her hawthorn cakes. Once she was full, she stretched out on the soft couch for a nap. As for the matchmaking banquet, she had already discussed it with Wen Huaiyan. He would handle everything. She only needed to dress up beautifully and show up. Easy and effortless. Tang Cheng thought it was quite a good deal, silently praising her own cleverness. The Wen Huaiyan she was thinking of, once finished with his light official duties, sent out invitations to the young men listed on the Marquis of Nanyang's roster of suitors. Steward Tang Ping, upon learning what the young master had done, was still left in a daze. Those who received the invitations were all dumbfounded. Was this a warning or a warning? These fortunate young talents, included on the Marquis of Nanyang's list of eligible suitors, were utterly stunned. Once past the shock, they all assumed it must be some kind of prank. None of them took it seriously, even joking about it to others. As a result, news that Lord Wen was personally hosting a matchmaking banquet for Miss Tang spread like wildfire. The capital erupted. Everyone was dumbstruck, unable to believe it. Had Lord Wen lost his mind? Tea houses and taverns buzzed with talk. Hardly anyone believed it. Is it true? Lord Wen would have to be crazy to do such a thing. Impossible. Must be some kind of prank. Exactly. Maybe Miss Tang cooked it up herself, borrowing Lord Wen's name. Then why hasn't the Duke of Zhenguo's household clarified? In a private room of a certain tea house, Su Jingxing and Qi Changxiu listened to the noisy discussions below, then looked at the handsome man across from them, sitting at ease as he sipped his tea. Their expressions were impossible to describe. Huaiyan, what exactly are you thinking? Su Jingxing looked at the ornate invitation in front of him, coughed lightly and asked. When Huaiyan curved his lips into a smile, explained his arrangement with Tang Cheng, and ended with, quite a bargain, isn't it? Qi Changxiu. Su Jingxing. What kind of bargain was that supposed to be? No wonder when Huaiyan had agreed to help. Since nothing could stop Tang Cheng from holding the matchmaking banquet anyway, he might as well take the real benefit. That was the logic, but even so, when Huaiyan's move was far too outrageous, too shocking to accept. Once the news spread, his reputation would surely take a hit. The two of them sat speechless for a long while. Huaiyan, can't you just choose someone else? There are countless women in the world. What's so special about Miss Tang? Exactly. Why put yourself through this? When Huaiyan gave a faint smile. Everyone has their own tastes. Besides, Tang Cheng carried his child. For that reason alone, he could never stand by and watch her marry another. Qi Changxiu. Su Jingxing. Forget it. This wasn't the first time they had tried to talk him out of it. Clearly, when Huaiyan had set his heart on Miss Tang. Miss Tang loved to stir up trouble. In the past, the Marquis of Nanyang had spoiled her and shielded her. From now on, when Huaiyan would be added to the list, they could already imagine. His married life would be anything but dull. The three chatted a little longer about the banquet. Su Jingxing and Qi Changxiu finally agreed to help when Huaiyan persuade the young men on the list to attend, then left the private room together. Downstairs, the crowd in the tea house widened their eyes at the sight of three handsome, richly dressed young men descending. It's Lord Wen. The tea house fell silent at once. Suddenly, a young man couldn't hold back. He stood and shouted, Lord Wen, are the rumors true? Are you really helping Miss Tang host a matchmaking banquet? They're not rumors. I am indeed helping Miss Tang hold a matchmaking banquet, and I hope all those who've received invitations will attend. When Huaiyan smiled at the gathered patrons, admitting it cleanly and decisively. The words had barely fallen when the tea house erupted. Those who had insisted it must be a prank were slapped in the face on the spot. Su Jingxing. Qi Changxiu. It was over. Now the entire capital knew. Did Wen Huaiyan actually enjoy humiliating himself? The two dragged him out of the tea house as quickly as possible, but by then the news had already sprouted wings, spreading through the capital at lightning speed. Lord Wen's reputation plummeted. All those who had gleefully believed Miss Tang had been abandoned were left utterly dumbfounded. Lu Jintong nearly coughed up blood in rage. Tang Xian, recalling Tang Cheng's insistence that Lord Wen had not abandoned her, realized it was true, and she herself had foolishly urged her to accept the heir of Prince Rong. Tang Cheng must have been laughing at her inside all along. Tang Xian was both embarrassed and angry, yet also secretly relieved. Fortunately, Lord Wen was no longer her male god. A man who would so eagerly cuckold himself was far too disgraceful. The scandal swept through the city. Since Wen Huaiyan was a court official, the next day an imperial censor impeached him. The emperor furiously rebuked the censor for neglecting his duties. Afterward, the Duke of Zhenguo and the Marquis of Nanyang jointly submitted a memorial exposing the censor's corruption and misconduct. The evidence was ironclad, and the censor was immediately stripped of office. Wen Huaiyan told Tang Cheng nothing of these matters. The storms outside did nothing to affect Tang Cheng and Wen Huaiyan. Tang Cheng spent her days both nurturing her pregnancy and excitedly awaiting the matchmaking banquet, while Wen Huaiyan busied himself with preparations. Thanks to the efforts of Su Jingxing and Qi Changxiu, every man on the list had agreed to attend. By the time everything was in place, it was already late April, and the weather was turning warm. The long-anticipated matchmaking banquet had finally arrived. Hearing her four maids say that many people were eager to see the event, and knowing the garden where it would be held was quite large, a sudden idea popped into Tang Cheng's head. So that night, when Wen Huaiyan climbed over the wall and through the window into her room, Tang Cheng eagerly told him, "Wen Huaiyan, I just thought of a great idea." A faint sense of foreboding stirred in Wen Huaiyan's chest. "What great idea?" Tang Cheng said happily. "I heard lots of people are curious about my matchmaking banquet, so I've decided to give them a chance to watch it live. Of course, I'll have to charge a little fee. Not much, just 50 taels of silver per person." Wen Huaiyan. Hosting a matchmaking banquet was outrageous enough. It was similar in nature to the various flower banquets, except a flower banquet sounded refined, inviting well-born young men and women alike, while Tang Cheng's version was blunt and crude. She was the one picking others. That alone was already rebellious and shocking. But Tang Cheng actually wanted people to pay silver just to watch. Completely unprecedented. Wen Huaiyan really wanted to crack open Tang Cheng's head and see what on earth she was thinking. "Wen Huaiyan, what do you think of this idea? Isn't it fresh and brilliant?" Seeing Wen Huaiyan silent for so long, Tang Cheng couldn't help waving her hand in front of his eyes. Looking at her beaming face, Wen Huaiyan's brow twitched violently. His expression was one of pure despair. It was fresh and brilliant. Utterly unique, one of a kind. If word got out, it would definitely cause another sensation. "What's wrong? Are you that surprised I could come up with such a clever idea?" Tang Cheng lifted her chin proudly. "Yes. No one else would ever think of it." The corner of Wen Huaiyan's mouth twitched. Only Tang Cheng could come up with something this bizarre. Whether Wen Huaiyan meant it or not, Tang Cheng didn't care. She had already decided tickets would be sold. In a feudal society, charging admission to a banquet was unheard of, and would surely draw contempt. Tang Cheng didn't want Wen Huaiyan's reputation dragged down with hers. "Wen Huaiyan, let me handle this. You don't need to get involved. It wouldn't be good for your name." Wen Huaiyan hadn't expected Tang Cheng to consider his reputation. His eyes couldn't help but soften with a faint smile. "This matter, leave it to me." "No. I'll handle it alone." Tang Cheng was stubborn. Her reputation was already poor, and since the idea had been hers, she insisted on carrying it out herself. Wen Huaiyan disagreed. The two argued for quite a while before Wen Huaiyan finally compromised. They would handle it together. Tang Cheng still refused. "Wen Huaiyan, just think of me as greedy for money, unwilling to share a single coin." Wen Huaiyan. "Fine." In the end, Wen Huaiyan admitted defeat. Tang Cheng instantly broke into a smile, fussing over him with tea and water. Wen Huaiyan's handsome face was filled with helplessness. And so the matter of charging admission was settled. With his mind preoccupied by how to soothe the young men on the guest list, Wen Huaiyan didn't stay long. Before leaving, he cast what seemed like a casual glance at Tang Cheng's still flat belly. Remembering her recent craving for hawthorn cakes, and how the matron had said most pregnant women like sour and spicy foods, Wen Huaiyan's lips curved slightly. But just as he climbed over the wall out of the Marquis of Nanyang's residence, he was blocked by none other than Su Jingxing and Qi Changxiu. Wen Huaiyan. The night was cool as water, the stars sparse around the bright moon. Beneath the moonlight, Su Jingxing and Qi Changxiu looked at him in his black nightclothes, both grinning. "No wonder you don't come by during the day anymore. We thought you were keeping your distance for propriety's sake, but turns out you've been sneaking into the boudoir at night." The corner of Wen Huaiyan's mouth twitched. He gave a helpless smile. "What are you two doing here?" "We had someone tail you from the Duke of Zhenguo's estate," Su Jingxing said cheerfully. "We came here on purpose to wait for you. Didn't expect you to get away without a beating," Qi Changxiu added with genuine regret. Su Jingxing's tone also carried disappointment. "Yes, strange that the Marquis of Nanyang's guards didn't catch you, Wen Huaiyan. Two rotten friends. Enough, it's nearly dawn." Go back to your estates already. The very next day, Tang Cheng had people spread word of her plan to charge admission fees. The entire capital was thrown into an uproar. Everyone was nearly shocked out of their wits. Perhaps because most of Tang Cheng's antics were outrageous or unconventional, people had become somewhat accustomed to her, but reactions were sharply divided. Among the noble families and aristocratic circles, disdain ran rampant. A concubine-born daughter is still a concubine-born daughter. All she can see is money. The Marquis of Nanyang doesn't rein her in at all. How disgraceful! Indeed, Miss Tang must have gone mad for silver. Such vulgarity, so small-minded. And Lord One, what on earth is he thinking, fancying such a useless woman? Exactly. He's not afraid she'll bring disaster to his household? Just one look at her and you can tell she's trouble. Yet for all their sneering words, those high-born young ladies were perfectly honest in their hearts. Every last one was already preparing to spend the money to go watch the spectacle. As for the young masters, they thought Tang Cheng was hilarious, a true oddball. One after another, they decided they'd pay the silver just to join in the fun. After all, this was just something the younger generation was stirring up. When the elders heard the news, they only teased and joked with Marquis Nanyang, who didn't mind in the least. He was even proud of it. As for the merchants, they were full of praise for Tang Cheng's idea. Miss Tang really has a good head on her shoulders. Marriage prospects and money, two birds with one stone. Exactly. I've decided I must go and witness Miss Tang's brilliance for myself. Who else wants to come? A great many voices answered in agreement. Merchants had sharp instincts, and they knew most of the guests at Miss Tang's matchmaking banquet would come from prominent families. If they could forge some connections there, all the better. 50 taels for a ticket, downright cheap. While others thought Miss Tang was just making a ridiculous fuss, the merchants saw it as a perfect chance to expand their networks and seek out powerful patrons. Not only the local merchants of the capital, but even traveling traders from outside, once they heard of Tang Cheng's antics, became very interested. They too decided it was worth spending a little silver to join the fun. Who knew, maybe they could land themselves a powerful backer. The common folk, on the other hand, could only envy Tang Cheng for so easily earning what they themselves couldn't make in a whole year. Who said Miss Tang was brainless? Her head worked just fine. Tang Cheng's reputation as a foolish and scatterbrained woman began to shift in the eyes of the people. The sheer variety of reactions left those who harbored malice against her dumbfounded. Weren't people supposed to be cursing her left and right? Once again, Lu Jintong was driven to fury. Inside the palace, whenever the emperor grew tired of reviewing memorials, he liked to hear eunuch Fu tell him stories about Miss Tang to lighten the mood. This time, upon hearing of Tang Cheng's scheme to charge admission for her matchmaking banquet, and of all the reactions it had caused, the emperor couldn't help laughing. So Miss Tang has finally learned how to make money. Marquis Nanyang must be delighted. It was just that the method of making money was a bit bizarre. Eunuch Fu's mouth twitched. If I could, I'd want to go see the spectacle myself, the emperor said with great interest. Eunuch Fu, Su Jingxing and Qi Chongxiu, who had originally worried that Miss Tang's antics would drag Wen Huaiyan down into disgrace, realized their concern had been needless. The heir of Prince Rong was all smiles as well. He was looking forward to the matchmaking banquet even more now, eager to see whether Miss Tang might deliver yet another stunning surprise. While the outside world was in an uproar, Marquis Nanyang's residence remained as calm as ever. After learning of Tang Cheng's outrageous scheme, Tang Xian only shook her head silently. A bunch of ignorant fools. Collecting admission fees, this kind of thing has long been commonplace in the modern world. Tang Cheng is only copying others. Much ado about nothing. Besides, this little trick of Tang Cheng's could only earn her some money once. It wasn't a method that could be put on the table. Unlike her, she had far more profitable ideas. Summer was coming, and what sold best in summer? Tang Xian planned to collaborate with the fourth prince, using saltpeter to produce ice and make a fortune. After a sleepless night, Wen Huaiyan was stunned when he heard how people in the capital had responded to Tang Cheng's idea of charging admission. He had expected nothing but curses. He had even prepared to discreetly guide public opinion himself, yet to his surprise, Tang Cheng's move was nothing short of a stroke of genius. And to her surprise, people seemed to accept it quite well. It was said that those young masters, ladies, wealthy merchants, and others who didn't lack 50 taels were all prepared to pay just to watch the fun. The only real concern now was whether the garden hosting the matchmaking banquet would be big enough. When Huaiyan shook his head with a helpless smile, quickly realizing why. No matter how outrageous or scandalous the matter, once Tang Cheng was involved, it could no longer be judged by common sense. After all, everyone was already used to her antics and unreliability. If it had been him who announced the idea of charging an entry fee, people would never have reacted this way. But since it came from Tang Cheng, even those on the guest list might actually approve of it. When Huaiyan had someone deliver the news that Tang Cheng might make a fortune from this. Naturally, Tang Cheng was overjoyed. She had known all along that this was an ingenious idea. The first one to try something new always reaped a windfall, and of course this had much to do with her reputation and the fact that it was her personal matchmaking banquet. Tang Cheng was full of pride. In her mind, she could already picture the banquet day, with guests pouring in. Then all of a sudden, she realized she might have overlooked something. Fortunately, it wasn't too late. She immediately gave Zhenju instructions. Zhenju, go to the shop and order 6 large cash boxes. Zhenju. Miss, wouldn't ordering 6 big cash boxes be a little too high profile? What if not that many people actually come? The other 3 maids nodded in agreement. Indeed, 6 huge cash boxes at 50 taels a person, how many people would it take to fill them all? What if, in the end, only 1 box was filled? Wouldn't that make them a laughing stock? The 4 maids were deeply worried. Their young lady was far too confident. How is that high profile? If anything, I think 6 might be too few. Who knows if they'll even be enough? Tang Cheng raised her brows, brimming with confidence. The 4 maids were all left speechless. They dared not argue further. If they did, their lady might decide to order even more. Oh, and don't go sneaking around when you place the order. Do it openly and above board, don't make it look like something shady. And remember, tell them to finish within 2 days. Tang Cheng suddenly added another instruction. And one more thing, the cash boxes must be lacquered in gold. They need to shine, glittering with wealth at first glance. The 4 maids. Yes, Mississippi. Only then did Tang Cheng nod in satisfaction. Zhenju took the order and went straight to the shop to arrange for the cash boxes. As the personal maid of Tang Cheng, one of the capital's most notorious figures, her every move naturally drew attention. Sure enough, the moment Zhenju stepped into the shop, someone trailed in after her. Zhenju noticed and could only feel exasperated. The shopkeeper greeted her with a beaming smile. When he learned she wanted to order 6 large wooden cash boxes lacquered in gold, his enthusiasm grew even greater. Those who had followed inside overheard the gossip. Their eyes lit up, and they hurried off to spread the explosive news. By the time Zhenju returned to the Marquis of Nanyang's residence, the word that Tang Cheng had ordered 6 giant cash boxes from a shop under the heir of Marquis Wen's name had already swept through the entire capital. Everyone? When Huaiyan pressed a hand to his forehead, 6 enormous cash boxes. Tang Cheng truly came up with ideas on the spur of the moment. Still, her maid Zhenju had chosen well. The shop she went to happened to be one of his own businesses. Meanwhile, Tang Cheng was busy imagining how to make her matchmaking banquet as grand and splendid as possible. And soon enough, the long-awaited day of the 4th Miss Tang's personal matchmaking banquet finally arrived.